If I'm trusting Jesus to take me to heaven when I die, should I be obeying his commands while I'm living? Jesus said in the last words of Matthew, he said, "Go and make disciples." What he said is divided into three parts, very easy to understand. The first, go and make disciples. The second, baptizing them. And the third thing he said, and the one that I want to focus on, is teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. Teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. In Mark, the 16th chapter, the last chapter, ends with, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." And then he gives us a human choice. We have the choice to believe and be saved, and we have the choice not to believe. Every human being has the choice. They can believe and be saved, or they can reject. So if we're going to be fair about teaching people to obey all that he commanded, we need to teach them that they have the opportunity to believe and be saved, or to not believe and therefore not be saved. Luke concludes in the 24th chapter with the statement, "Repentance for the forgiveness of all sins shall be preached in his name to all nations." How does this work out? How does this play out? Is this still in effect? Let me share a story with you that is very, very important to me. In 1841, Paul Leninger was sent by the Churches of God to the forks of the Alwick and the Sidling Hill Creek to meet in an old log schoolhouse with grease paper windows to preach the gospel, to evangelize. And the hope was, the intent was to plant a church. The next year he went back to the conference, and every pastor had to give a report as to what was taking place and how they did. And he said, "Well, I worked all year and nothing happened. I had no results. Nobody was saved. I had no conversions." And so the church asked him to go back in 1842. He did. He had a number of conversions. In that very remote place, in a very crude setting, he had a number of conversions. They planted a church. The church met in that old log schoolhouse. And in 1855, they decided to build a church, and they built it in a grove of walnut trees and named it Walnut Grove Church of God. 100 years later, in 1955, as a teenager, I was saved in a revival service in that church. After that, I began to struggle with the call of God, and in 1967, I sold my cattle, machinery, farm, disposed of everything I had, and went to Haiti. What Jesus commanded us to do is something that is perpetual and eternal. And I am grateful today to have great-grandchildren that are attending this church, hearing the gospel, and having the opportunity to believe and to be saved. I'm deeply indebted to the Great Commission and to those who have been faithful in every way to carrying out the Great Commission. It is not something that is over and done and finished, but it is something that all of us are called to do. Teach people to obey everything that Jesus has commanded. The greatest devotional that I've ever found in my 80-some years is the words in red, the words that Jesus said. And I encourage all of you I'm sure many of you do already have devotions, but the greatest devotional book I've ever seen are the words in red. And I shared those with you today at the end of Jesus' time with the disciples. In Matthew and Mark and Luke, we find the command to go. Thank you, and Lord bless you.